This month, welcome to the interview part of this meeting. This month, our very own Jill Smith will be chairing a debate about people and business and is joined by Kay Hamblin and Dean Love. Kay is from 8 Legal, who provide very people-focused employment law and HR support to small businesses. She is also an accredited workplace mediator and uses mediation to help businesses resolve conflict and build relationships. Dean is the Business Development Manager for Hewett Recruitment, a multi-sector recruiter specialising in industrial, commercial, engineering, IT, finance and executive search. So over to you, Jill, Kay and Dean for the next 20 minutes or so, and I'll give you a warning sign with about 5 minutes to go, okay?
Thank you very much indeed, guys. So welcome to Kay and to Dean. So Dean, let me ask you the first question. When we refer to people and business, we're obviously thinking holistically. So can I ask you what your thoughts are about that phrase when it comes to business management?
I think business management, from our perspective, would include the recruitment and retention part, obviously. And I think taking a holistic approach, I think, is a great way to empower your employees. It gives them the confidence to express themselves and their ideas without, I suppose, being prejudiced or fear in any way. And I think it can be really open. It really opens a positive working environment for employees. And I think a positive working environment leads on then to a higher retention rates within the company. We're finding that a lot at the moment. There's a lot of engagement from managers and team leaders with their staff, trying to understand, if there's issues, if they've got problems, just trying to have an open culture. And I think, again, that leads to them feeling confident that they can approach their managers and discuss any problems that they've got, have maybe a personal problem or working problem. And again, they're not, and then the companies aren't finding out about these issues at exit interview stage, which used to be the case. So obviously, they can, sometimes you can't fix the problems, but I think taking that approach, I think it really does, just help with the staff retention, and it just gets that name out there better, that the company will listen and they have a better name in the community. And we find that that's really, the way forward for these companies. And a lot more, I suppose you could put old style type of companies are taking that new approach and changing the way that they do work, which is really great, to be fair.
So Kay, from your point of view, what are you seeing with your clients around this particular question?
I think in general, the thing with people and business is it's all encompassing, isn't it? Because without people, there really is no business. And I think a business is only as good as the people in it. So I think, like as Dean has said, things are changing in the world of work, and there are real challenges around things like recruitment and retention. And I just think that how you treat people in the workplace, so your employees, your customers, the general public, is fundamental to your culture, the culture of the business and the reputation of the business. So it's really at the heart of everything. And I think if you look after your people, treat them well, listen to them, absolutely crucial. I shall probably repeat myself endlessly on that. It's not just the right thing to do, but I think you do reap the rewards financially as well as a business. And it's a competitive marketplace in most sectors, and people are expecting to get really good service. And if you don't treat your people well, they are not going to give really good service to your customers. So I think it's kind of cyclical. And if you put people at the centre of it and look after them, then everything else kind of flows from that for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Dean, we're talking about this being holistic. Do you get a feeling from your different clients and the different people you talk to, though, that perhaps their understanding of what holistic really means is different, or do you think that's a common?
I think they probably use different terminology, but they all mean the same thing. I think, again, it's just, I think it's pretty new to a lot of clients, this way of thinking. But it's great to see that they're opening up and they're treating this holistic approach is really opening up the communication between all departments, from the shop floor right through to HR and administration and finance. And again, that just helps with recruitment as well, because someone on the shop floor might have a HR friend who's looking for a new position. So it's all that communication flow, really, which, again, like Kay said, it just helps promote the strategy within the company and helps promote the services of the business. And I say, when they really are passionate about what they do and engaged, then it's really going to drive the business forward and give them a great working environment.
Okay, coming back to what you were saying, so are you finding now that clients are tending to start really thinking about their culture and their values and what that means, you know, to them in terms of where they want to take their business, but also what it means in terms of their staff and their potential customers?
I think it's a spectrum, really, isn't it? People are on different businesses are at a different stage of that values journey. We've been working recently with quite a few startups, which has been really interesting. Some of them have contacted us before they've got an employee, which is great. So we're getting everything in place at the start. And I think a lot of them have really, really thought about this stuff and really are putting that across sort of in the way they recruit people, in the way they select people. I think some more established businesses might have the values on the wall, but whether they're quite as embodied in the culture, it's really variable. So I think it's a huge spectrum. I think also in terms of, you know, that kind of what a company is doing for its people, different people again are at different stages. Some people are just kind of very focused on what they can get out of people, rather than it being a more holistic and a two-way journey. And, you know, I think that's a lesson that people have to learn. If they're going to keep attract and retain good people, they're going to have to make some shifts, I think.
It's a cliche, isn't it? It's got to come from the top down.
Yeah.
You know?
But it can't just be imposed from the top down, so it's got to bring everybody with it. So it's you know, how you kind of get your values out there, but bring everybody with you and get everybody's input into that whole value culture thing.
Yeah. So recruitment and retention of workforce has obviously been, you know, pretty challenging, I guess, over the last
still is.
couple of years, and there's lots of changes going on. Some of those have been quite unexpected, I guess, in terms of. So Dean, how do you see that in both your workplace and what you're seeing inside your particular clients in terms of, you know, how they're adapting to that change? What are the key challenges they're seeing in there?
I think the main key challenge is obviously embracing this hybrid working model. Some clients are rather reluctant. They have no model whatsoever. Others are completely now just thinking that we'll have all of our people working remotely and changing offices into hot desking areas, you know, or meeting places. So but again, it's a case by case position really. And the clients that are embracing it, I think, have definitely got an edge over their competitors. And that might be through, you know, a manufacturing company that can have their sales team working from home. It doesn't just have to be like IT related. And again, but I just think it comes into everything really, where what candidates are looking at the moment. Yes, they want a pay rise because of obviously our general living expenses are going to massively increase. So hard cash is, you know, is key. But also people are looking at that flexibility. They're looking at holidays. They're looking at training, you know, all the way through to sustainability, environment within the company, environmental issues, and how the company looks at that. So it's the whole package. It's not just salary anymore. It's what the company can offer with regards to ongoing training, you know, upskilling staff, careers. And again, that comes to that holistic approach, is how they are accepted within the workforce. You know, some people might not think, oh, I'll work there because I won't be accepted. And it's understanding why that is. And again, we like to work with clients on that front, really, just to allow them to have a bit more of an open mind with the type of people that they recruit for. Sometimes they're like, oh, we need this individual for this type of team. It's why, you know, just because they sing from the same hymn sheet doesn't mean they bring the same ideas. Get someone different and they can really add to the team moving forward and create a better environment, really. So it's just being a bit more flexible, which is difficult sometimes to get that message across to clients. So
okay, I mean, obviously we're seeing a lot of change around hybrid working, and as Dean mentioned, you know, some companies staying where they are, some going to completely the opposite extreme. Are you seeing HR issues come through from that in terms of how companies are handling different employees? Because, you know, if you've got an employee who's got a stronger voice about how they want their work to be, you know, is that affecting how they're handling those challenges?
It can do, certainly. Yeah. I mean, I think hybrid working is just one of them. And I mean, it's really important to remember that for some sectors it's just not an option. You know, there are some jobs that, you know, you've got to be in a certain place at a certain time, and I think that's sort of its own challenge. I think the way I come at this really is about, you know, in a competitive market, it's what you do to retain the people that you've got and to grow the people that you've got and maximize their engagement. So, you know, looking at the working environment, be that at home or in the office, looking at working conditions, how you treat people, obviously, and in terms of sort of engagement, there are some kind of key drivers of engagement, and money, as everybody knows, actually isn't always at the top of that list, or, you know, it's not the only one. So, you know, it's things like people knowing what's expected of them, having some control and autonomy over how they work, having good feedback, having supportive relationships at work, having opportunities to progress, and also, I mean, I think quite importantly, feeling part of it, feeling part of something bigger. And again, I guess that's something that can be quite hard to get across in a remote working situation. How do you kind of keep that holistic kind of part of it feeling going? I think also from the HR perspective, one of the things when there's a bit of a crisis in recruitment, it can make managers and bosses a bit timid about how they deal with people. So if that's somebody who's not performing terribly well, but you're scared you won't be able to replace them, there's this kind of temptation to think, well, you know, they're not great, but they're better than nobody. And so they don't deal with it. And then actually what happens is your good employees look at that and think, oh, I can't believe they're getting away with it. They get disengaged and they go. So although I can understand why it makes people a bit wary, I think it's absolutely crucial to still stay on top of performance and stay on top of people and how they're behaving in the workplace.
I think another thing with, sorry, Jill, with hybrid working is we tend to find there's that always on type of situation. Yeah. You're not, you know, you don't switch off your normal hours, and that brings issues with, you know, stress and working longer hours than you should be doing, really. So again, that's another HR problem, is managing that correctly, isn't it, really? So
on the HR front, and you may be seeing this, Dean, in job descriptions as well, are you seeing the flexibility expressed in how companies are managing their staff's performance, in terms of, are they now becoming more outcome driven rather than effort driven?
Sorry.
No, you go for it, Kay.
Well, I think that is a gradual shift, and I think if we're obviously, because we're outsourced HR, we're not kind of there quite as hands-on with setting those targets or monitoring those targets, but I think it's something that I've advocated for a long time, is that it's not, you want to look at what people are producing rather than some random numbers. It is. Yeah. So I think for me, that's not a huge shift mentally, because that's how I've tried to encourage people to be anyway, and as much as I've ever been involved with that.
It helps when the clients open their doors, because we're the same as a recruitment consultancy. When they open their doors and allow us in to really fully understand the business, then you can get to the bottom of the, you know, the KPIs and the targets and everything else, can't you, really, and understand what they're driven, what the motivators are, which helps really when recruiting people.
So moving on to mental health, Kay, what are you seeing in terms of the awareness of mental health problems in companies and how they're potentially handling it? I mean, obviously it's now much more talked about than it probably was in the past, but
I think awareness has improved, and I think gradually people are becoming a little bit more ready to speak about this stuff and talk about it openly in the workplace. There is still a lot of stigma around mental health conditions, and you know, fundamentally to that, again, it's about opening the conversation, creating a safe space for people to talk, and again, I think managers sometimes have to show some of that vulnerability too. It's a fine balance as a boss or a manager to allow yourself to be vulnerable, but also stay in a position of authority. So I think that's a difficult one for people. I think there has been an increase in mental health problems since the pandemic. I think WHO quoted, I don't know, it's gone up by 25% or something, I think. And it is huge, and a lot of what we deal with now in terms of HR problems seems to involve an element of mental health. And I'm hearing anecdotally that a lot of tribunal cases are involving somebody who's got either a mental health condition or a neurodivergent condition, often one that the employer wasn't even aware of, sometimes one that wasn't even diagnosed until things kicked off. So, that's a real challenge for employers. And I saw there was the Centre for Mental Health estimated that in 2021, mental health problems cost the UK economy, I think it was just short of £35 billion.
Wow.
It equates to £1,300 per employee in the UK. So sort of financially, it's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And if you look at what that represents in terms of human impact and distress, it is vast. So definitely, I think there is more awareness. It is more open. More people are prepared to talk about this stuff, but there's still a huge way to go, I think. I don't know what you'd say, Dean, to that.
I mean, Dean, do you see this something that during the recruitment process, companies are actively talking about how they offer any support, indeed whether their managers have had any mental health training or anything?
Yeah, we do. When we speak to clients, we talk about mental health issues, and I think they're coming to the stage now where they realise it's just as important as physical health, especially in the workplace, for someone to be able to, work at full capacity. Say if they're, it's not just about being physically fit; it's about being mentally fit, isn't it? So, but yeah, they do come across, and we if they haven't got mental, say, first aiders in place, then we try and advise them on that as well, to say, look, Hewett Recruitment, we've got 22 staff, but we've got 3 mental first aiders.
Wow.
And we've got 3 but we use them for our temporary staff as well. And we always say, look, if there's any issues at work, you just come and talk to us. And I think it's just that reassurance that pick up the phone, have a chat. I think that's all you have. Well, that's all you can do. You can't make everyone talk and be open. But at the same time, if it's there and that you've offered that advice and help, that's all you can do, isn't it, really? I think it's definitely coming through a lot more from our clients.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say with mental health first aid, I think it can be fantastic. But I think too many businesses sort of say, oh, yeah, you'd be good at that. You should go and do the training. Rather than finding somebody who wants to do it, or thinking about maybe even training all your managers in mental health first aid, because
I think all managers should do. If they're leading the team, they should have an awareness and understanding.
I agree, because some of these conversations are really hard to start, and if you've got some tips and some techniques for just getting in there.
I suppose some of it's recognising the sign, the potential indicators as well before it becomes. I am just going to throw a curveball in here as well, though, because I think on the flip side, one thing that we're seeing is, I don't think this is new, but when you're in a situation where you are trying to tackle bad behaviour or poor performance, and the employee immediately goes to the doctor and gets signed off with stress or a mental health problem. So I think it feels like a difficult thing to say, because I'm not suggesting that that's the case for most people, but it is sometimes manipulated by employees as well. So it's really challenging, I think, for employers, to be honest, from both sides. You wonder why everybody does it, really, aren't you?
I know.
That's the problem, I think. As soon as somebody mentions mental health, it's like you've got to they just automatically take a step back. And I think you've got to be careful, haven't you, sort of thing, But again, if you've got an engaged workforce and everything else like that, and a workforce that wants to come to work, then that should be a minority, really, shouldn't it, really?
Yeah. It is just sometimes it's not that unusual. We'll quite often talk to a client and we'll say, just be warned, when you do this, they may well go and see their GP and get signed off, and it happens surprisingly often.
But it's one of those balancing tricks, isn't it, really? So just getting back to the hybrid working, we've talked a little bit about how we're seeing that. I mean, do we think it's now at a point where most companies have settled on their model, or do we see it changing a lot more in the next year? Or Kay, what are your thoughts?
I think it's still part of a process, to be honest.
Jane, I see, is nodding as well.
I think people have made variable strides in this direction. I think, I've had this conversation with Jane before, a business telling all its employees, right, you're going to work from home 2 days a week and come to the office 3 days a week, is not flexible working. It may be hybrid, but it's not flexible. It's still imposed. And again, it comes back to talking to people, finding out what they want and need. So home working isn't for everybody. Some people live in a bed sit or a pokey little flat and they don't have anywhere to work, or they've got people at home that it makes it difficult to work. Some people with mental health conditions, so you might have somebody who's battling with depression, coming to work, the routine, the contact with people, that's what keeps them going. So it's really dangerous to make assumptions about what's best for somebody and what they need and what they want. So again, I said I'd get boring about this. Talk to people, find out what they need, find out what they want, find out what's working for them. So you've got to look at what the business needs first, obviously, and if you need people in a certain place at a certain time, then that's got to come first.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think be as flexible as you can be. But a lot of people are still on a journey. I think it's a big mind shift, and although during the pandemic everybody had to make these huge changes, some businesses are desperate to get back to normal, whereas some are embracing the change, and some are imposing change. It's a whole spectrum again.
Yeah, I suppose it's an interesting one, isn't it? I know James put a note in the chat box. It is about that, it's a bit of a can-do attitude rather than a maybe these are the rules and this is the way we're done. So Dean, for the hybrid working piece, for when you're talking to clients and they're looking to fill new roles, as Kay was suggesting, sometimes we do hybrid working, but actually it's not very flexible. But presumably there's a model where actually it's flexible and hybrid. There's a model where it's flexible but not hybrid, because people used to do flexible working before it was hybrid. So what are you seeing with your clients, and is that a key thing that they're interested in articulating for their company in terms of recruiting, but also having as part of the conversation when they're interviewing?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's still very much an ongoing process, and and I think it's a case by case basis for each company. But they say at the moment it is just we offer hybrid working and it's 2 days a week. Great, but is that really going to suit that person? And I think that's the key. It's taken out. If they can offer it, it's offering it individually. Say, okay, what works for you? But we need you in. We need everyone in on a Wednesday for a production meeting. So out of those other days, you can take 2 days from home, and what was going to suit you. And I think that's the key moving forward. It's great having a hybrid model, but that model might mean that it's, for one person, it's completely all in the office. For another person, it might be 3 or 4 days at home. And it's having that flexibility, really. And I think as well, the flexibility comes down to maybe the job role. It can come down to function, person to person. So I think that's the next level. The next step is really understanding with the company is, okay, you've got to break your hybrid model down now per employee and see what really works for them. And that's when you get that total engagement. And that's, I can see it causing issues, I suppose, because everyone, you've got to have all these notes per person and everything else. But at the same time, I think that's the only really true way a hybrid model would work, is if it's person to person, rather than just a whole company approach, really.
And are you seeing generational differences in terms of what people want and expect as candidates for role?
I've not come across that, if I'm honest. Definitely sector by sector. IT is obviously a huge one. If you don't offer hybrid working models in IT, it's a massive no-no and a big turn-off. But then manufacturing, again, you can't really say to someone on the shop floor who's welding, oh, you can work from home on a Thursday. So, and they feel aggrieved. They're like, well, when I'm working from home, I'm still traveling. So it's okay. So what can we offer you then? So we can offer you some flexi working time. You could leave earlier because, on a Friday maybe, or on a Monday, and that, again, you're getting more buy-in from your employees, aren't you, sort of thing, so it's okay. Well, I can't work from home, but I can leave a little bit earlier on the Friday. So just to make up for that. So again, it's just looking at those different routes. And I think with everything going on in the business, it's one of those ones like, look, we've just got a hybrid model right now, and then we'll start breaking it down as we go forward. So it's, again, I think it's not new as such, working from home, but for a lot of companies, they've had their hands forced. So I think now it's a case of, right, we need to really embrace this moving forward.
Well, they probably need to go back and look at it properly, don't they? Because it was enforced. Yeah. So it was all a bit of a rush and maybe not thought through. Yeah, absolutely.
And it comes back to that holistic approach, which is all about individuals and what they want and what's right for them. And, the ultimate buy-in. So when they come to think, oh, shall I move for the extra 5,000? Actually, no, because I won't get this kind of flexible hybrid model working for somebody else that really suits me. So money doesn't matter then. So.
Yeah. Okay, you got anything to add to that?
Well, all I was just going to say is that there was a lot of talk. There's been kind of talk about this employment bill that's been being brought forward. All sorts of different things are supposed to be in this employment bill. And one of them was, at the moment, you can make a formal flexible working request once you've been employed for 26 weeks. And they were talking about making it a day one right, which on one level just seems like a complete nightmare and a bit of nonsense, because why would you take a job and then put in a flexible working request? But I think if that became a day one right, it would really make employers think at the recruitment stage, how much flexibility can I offer? What, you know, they think about it beforehand, I think, a little bit more, and
a bit more proactive.
Yeah.
I mean, as somebody sort of who helps businesses with HR, I can't put my head in my hands at the thought of it. Just, there's so much, because it's quite a formal process that you have to follow for a formal request. But I can see how, on the flip side of that, it would really make employers think, you know, at the recruitment stage, you know, well, what can we offer? How flexible could we be? And really think about it, making it sort of part of the process, making it part of the holistic process, I suppose. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's talk about inclusion a bit then. How are candidates looking at inclusion policies for employers when they're thinking about what jobs they might apply for, Dean?
Jill, can I just give you 2 minutes at this stage, guys?
Okay, yeah, okay, I'll be quick. We don't really they don't usually use the word inclusion as such. They tend to want a company where they feel like they are listened to, and I suppose you could say included in having their ideas listened to, being part, and just accepted to who they are. So, and a lot of companies again are finding that, you know, it's just not one person for the right fit. They can have lots of different types of personalities within a team. They don't, you know, you don't just all have to be the same person. And that comes back to that flexibility really, and what can different attitudes and personalities can all add to that team environment really. So.
Okay, do you think employers get nervous about inclusion as a label for staff at all?
I think yes, I think it can make them nervous. I think you know, one of these new startups that we had recently talking to, and they were sort of saying, but what if we take somebody on and then they go off on long-term sick or whatever? And it's like, you can't protect yourself against that. So I think there is that side that's a bit of a stress for employers. But I sort of think, you know, basically it is about making a workplace somewhere where everybody does feel that they have a voice, where they have their space, where they are included. And it's not about artificial targets. It is just about making people feel part of it. And
I think that's a difficulty, isn't it, with inclusion? It's hard to measure.
Yeah, very.
And I think that's the problem really. A lot of clients think, well, how can I measure the inclusion part? And maybe setting up some surveys or some feedback sessions, you know, that sort of thing really helps.
Yeah, and I do feel a bit concerned. I think there is, you know, because there's this kind of, I don't know, anti-woke culture war sort of backlash thing going on at the moment. I think it's being very politicised, and I think that's quite difficult.
Dangerous, isn't it? Yeah.
It's difficult if you're on the receiving end of it. I think if you are somebody who feels not included, to hear some of the stuff must be very, very hard, I think.
So thanks, guys. Guy, have we got time for a couple of questions?
Yeah, we have. I actually had a question. Just very really briefly for both of you, if you've got a candidate for a job, or you're recruiting for candidates for a job, how would you broach the subject of mental health? Or would you be able to? How would you actually say, okay, because you can't actually ask someone, can you, if there's any pre-existing? It's even more of a minefield than virtually any other issue.
Is this like when we're talking to a candidate for a job, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just wouldn't ask.
No.
We wouldn't ask a candidate if they've got mental health issues.
No, I mean, our advice is always, the only question that you might ask about health or a disability before you've offered somebody a job is if they need specific adjustments to attend an interview as part
hearing
of
or access, things like that.
Yeah. Beyond that, you don't talk about it until you offer somebody a job. At the point when you offer them a job, then we would sort of suggest asking if there are any health conditions of any sort.
Okay.
Aware of. But it's not that you can't ask before, but you're opening yourself up to very potentially dangerous
Definitely. It's like you can't ask an age anymore, or, you know, things like that. You've got to be so careful.
That's a good thing.
Well, you shouldn't have to ask someone's age or what's, you know.
No, and again, you know, like childcare, you can't say to somebody, "Oh, what were you doing? The kids are sick," or anything like that, because it's potentially opening up
Real
discrimination. You know.
Yeah.
Time for one more question, if anybody's got one. Leslie.
Hi everyone. I was going to say what I wrote there. Can we go back? This is the new normal. How will you retain Generation X and Z when they've already tasted work from home? I was in a conversation with Spotify a few months ago, their HR manager, and they're really concerned about keeping the younger generation engaged and being able to meet managers, but not just that, but being able to work from home and have that other quality of life.
I suppose it comes back to what Dean was saying, though. It's a case of having those conversations, isn't it, with individuals and finding out what it is they want. And then, as Jane was saying, having a bit of a can-do attitude about how you might do it, rather than no, it's 2 days a week, sort of take it or leave it. So, yeah, because
I think
I've worked at home for years and years and years, and I'm definitely not a Gen Z. So,
Really?
we speak to clients, and they recruited people in the COVID period that haven't even been to the office. It was all done over telephones. So that poses a problem then when they do come to the office. How are they going to fit in? How are they going to work with and again, that comes to that inclusion part, really, where, you know, we need to embrace everyone different personality. And again, if, you know, it's offering that type of working environment where they want to come to the office, not just stay away. And I think, you know, if someone wants to not go into the office and be like, why? What's wrong? You know, that'd be my first question, really. But again, it just depends on the type of company and their setup, really. So
fantastic. So lots of interesting. Jane's just raised an interesting point in the chat box, which we maybe pick up as part of another interview session at some point, because that would be interesting to explore. So thank you very much indeed, Kay and Dean. And the discussion is, what are the pros and cons of hybrid and flexible working in the context of your business growth, or indeed your business survival?